Okay. So just a few moments at least sitting forwards in your chair, just to remind yourself of the basic posture that we're moving towards, even if it's not particularly comfortable. Just have, just have this as a sort of long-term aspiration. About a third of your weight in your feet, 2/3 back, supported from your feet and your hips. Just be wary. This is a strong posture, particularly for your back, and it's very easy to suddenly realise that you've stiffened up. So don't feel stuck in that. And your ability to stay in this particular position will vary from day to day as well. But this alignment of the body, your weight sinking down, is the one that really does allow for a sinking of your weight. So the theory goes that it takes the strain off your back, of course. But theory and practice are always slightly different, aren't they? So just feel comfortable and rubbing your hands together, and tapping over your face, just using the pads of your fingers. Work up over your head, down to your neck. Down to one shoulder, and your arm. The other side. Upper part of your chest. Belly. Hand around to your back if you can get there comfortably. And your legs. Okay. Feet out and drop back. Well, this feeling of just being able to let your weight drop back without any hindrance, with just using the support of the chair and aware of the support of the chair. Take a couple of slow, gentle breaths, just feeling changes within the body in this position. Qualities that we want to try and bring into the upright stance. It may be that freer sense of your breathing that you get when there's less tightness in the front of your body. It may be something else. It may be other things that you notice. And these become reference points for our intent when we come back up to the upright and when we go to the standing. You may notice also that there are some areas of the body that you just habitually hold tight, even though there's no sort of need for it. So, if you spent years, I don't know, holding a shoulder tight, for instance, then it's not just going to go away. Now bringing your feet in, come into the upright position again, in whatever part of the chair is comfortable to you. This thing about the habits that we've picked up. I remember years ago teaching one class. It was a standing class, and I was going into some quite sort of fine detail about posture and so on. And at the end of the class, this woman came up to me. Fortunately, she was smiling, but she stood there and she sort of stuck her hip out and held her arm like that. And she said, "It's all very well," she said, "but I've had 3 babies." In other words, she spent a fair amount of her time sort of standing with a baby on one hip and probably a couple of others running around her feet, sort of thing. So this sort of with the hip jutting out became a normal and comfortable posture, our bodies adapt, not just the muscles, but the bones as well. It's well established in different sports activities that say somebody like a marathon runner, if they run regularly, will develop different what they call stress lines in the bones to say somebody who, I don't know, does pole vaulting or something like that. So our regular habitual activities do tend to shape our body for us, and that's plastic. Things can change, but we should never force those changes. So if you spent a long time in a clerical job looking down like that, for instance, then you've probably developed a kind of gentle curve in your spine. If you've done a lot of work standing up, I don't know, all sorts of things, then maybe you're leaning backwards, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to move slightly. So take into account what's comfortable for you, what gives you the maximum amount of space for movement within your body at any particular time, and work from there. So your weight mostly back in your hips, with a bit of support from your feet and your legs, with this sense that you can allow your rib cage, you can allow your shoulders to drop. That puts more emphasis on your back. But again, it may affect your breathing, or sense of what's happening in your belly, that kind of thing. And just slowly turning your head. And notice how starting to move changes that, because the other thing that we've developed over the years is habits of movement. So if, for instance, you had at one point in your life an injury that involved you having to sort of like work a little bit harder to, I don't know, stand up or take a step with one foot or something like that, then it's quite possible that that habit remains, even if the injury is long gone. And then the shoulders. Any changes that take place will take place over a period of time. We have to not only condition the body, but actually persuade ourselves that the change is a positive one. So if, for instance, as a lot of people do, when they're standing, you habitually lean back a bit, a more upright posture may make you think that you're really leaning forwards a great deal. Nobody is, by the way, nobody that I can see is hunched forwards, and then going forwards. We normalize how we are, and that becomes how we think we should be in a sense. Hands down by your sides, winding your arms around. And then raising your hands, not just your wrists, but trying to feel the movement up into your shoulders. And back the other way. Press your hands down. Now, from here, you're going to tilt forwards, your pelvis are going to rock forwards, and that will send your weight into your feet, and then a little push pushes your weight back. So you could see this as a movement of the center of your body, that area from your pelvis to your waist, rolling forwards like a ball, and then rolling back. Or you could see this as from this position, you're allowing your weight to go forwards more, and that will cause the tilting in the pelvis, and so on and so forth. Remember that all of these movements can be described and viewed in different ways, and no one way of actually looking at them is going to be the complete picture. You know, if you went with some friends to a big tree and you all stood around the tree and you all described what you saw, then you'd all describe something slightly different. Doesn't mean that one description is wrong and another one right. What it means is that the full picture is a composite of the whole. So use other ideas, images, awarenesses are useful to you that feel as though they're adding something to the movement, and just place the other ones in a kind of reserve box. And turn just a little bit. And then in the other direction, so the turn is in the middle of your body, not just wrenching your shoulders around. There's a slight kind of turn through your spine, but very, very gentle. And then swinging across to the other foot, feeling your weight moving around the perimeter of your stance. That's, think of a square formed by your feet and your hips at the corners. The weight is moving around the edge of that square. Go back the other way. Okay. And then the feet, push one heel up, step out, put your heel down first and then your toes. You get used to this idea of stepping, planting the foot without your weight sort of falling into it. So it's really, you know, initial contact with the floor is in a way quite light, and you push in just a little bit. What we would call in Tai Chi an empty step. On the other side. So these things should hang around in the background of your attention as we go into the first set of exercises. Hands down to your sides, turn your hand palm forward, bird folds its wings. That rotation that we did earlier, associated with the transfer of the weight that we did earlier. So we've laid out the ingredients, we're now starting to just bring them together in different combinations. trying to keep a degree of fluidity in the movement. If you find that you're sort of occupied with particular details, that may slip a little bit. That's not unusual. Remind yourself to come back to it every now and then. And then change into fisherman castanet. Palms of your hands facing backwards. Arms feeling quite heavy. Being pulled through the air, or if you prefer to use that image of moving through water, being drawn through the water. So your shoulders always leading in this movement. Just notice how your hands drop right down. So there's a very gentle curve there. Not because you're trying to lift your hands, it's just a natural thing, isn't it, for your hands to swing up. This time, let the curve just continue forwards and up. And as you come back, drawing your hands over, as though you're rolling the ball in towards your chest. This time, when your hands get to this position, turn them palm in, bring your chest opening and then closing. And your back. Your back is the opposite way around to your chest. Pigeon spreads its wings. So that movement from front to back, bring your chest and your upper back. But don't lose track of what's happening between your hips and your feet in terms of the weight rolling forward one way or another, and back. And this time, just let your elbows go back a little bit and then out, keeping your hands in front of your hips. Pushing wave. Pushing wave, or sometimes pushing a wave. I like pushing wave because it feels like the wave-like movement working through my body moves my hands for me. But pushing a wave is also a useful image because you're pushing deliberately against something, not something rock hard, but something that will yield, but kind of reluctantly. One more time. This time, let your hands drop down, make a loose fist with your hand. And when you come back, rotate your arm. Don't let your elbows go behind the shoulders or your hips. So it's a relatively small movement. If I do nothing with my arms, you can see there's already a considerable amount of movement there. If I just think about that angle in my elbow, I go forward and then I let that flatten out a little bit. I do get a little bit more movement. And then I rotate as I do that. So this elbow isn't locked out and then it draws back in. Doing that with both hands, of course. So I suppose in a way you could say that this, more than the previous two exercises, really highlights the significance of the movement of your weight. And this time, turn your hands out, winding them back. Let them drop down as you wind them around. And that seems to just bring your hand almost automatically back to the position that you need. From here, from the rear position, turn your hands palm down and polishing the table. Swinging around and back. Try not to bend your back. You turn and you tilt forward. So I'm doing this, not this. This is quite strong on your back, of course. This position is quite strong, although we're not holding it. So just be aware that there might be a tendency to sort of punch down. If there is, then make it a smaller movement. Try and keep that upright position. And when you've got used to that, then again, you can maybe go a little bit further if that feels appropriate. But trying to maintain good structure, good posture while you're in movement, it's quite tricky. And it's one of the kind of ongoing tasks with Tai Chi. One more on each side. Now bring your hands in, turn them palm up, let them rest in your lap, but just rest here for a moment and realign yourself, come back to that posture. There's a good chance that in doing those previous exercises, you kind of shifted a little bit. Take a couple of slow, gentle breaths in this position. And then just pressing down a little bit through your feet and your hips, pushing your arms up, doing the lengthening in your back and the contracting. Expanding, lengthening, contracting. And then in this position, turn your hands out. Same kind of idea, but obviously a little bit stronger with your arms out to the sides like this. Be aware of what your elbows are doing. In a way, the first movement in each direction is with your elbows. This is exaggerated a little bit, but there you feel the expansion in your body, pushing your elbows out. That draws your fingers up. That is overdone, by the way. So, I wouldn't want to be in this position for this particular exercise. More here. Fingers spread out, fingers pointing away from your body. Try not to let my fingertips disappear. And then parting the clouds, which involves a little bit of a movement forward so your hands can get in front of your knees, and then back sinking into your hips, and then the push up. So slightly different to the previous two exercises, unlike the standing versions, where what happens in feet, legs, and hips remains the same for each of these exercises, the three that we've done so far. Rooting down, wild goose, now this one, parting the clouds. And then another change, this time letting your hands drop down. Once again, just feel the weight of your arms hanging on your shoulders before you do the little push through one side, and your elbow leading the movement. And so as we become more aware of what our elbows are doing, we realize that it takes less effort to pull our fingers up in this way. I exaggerate, the elbow goes out, and that pulls up, and then it drops down. But it is to think about our hand and think, well, somehow I've got to get the hand up there. Looking for the path of least resistance in our movements. last time. So now both hands coming in. And although it's not obvious, again, just feel the evolution of the movement through your body. We would always try to start in feet and then hips, so that little bit of a push down, the expansion in your back, feeding into your arms in one way or another. Then elbows first, and then your wrists and your fingers. Even though with a movement like this, not always clear. You can see it on the way down, see the elbows dropping, pulling your fingers down. But here, it's not necessarily obvious. Maybe the elbows going out a little bit, and with the rotation, push to the sides. It doesn't have to be obvious to be felt. So what we notice in some movements can feed in to other movements. There's a lot of shared ground between all the movements. One more round. As you push out, extend your arms, scooping the sea and looking at the sky. Think of your arms as being a bit like a shovel. You're scooping, shoveling dirt up or something in your garden. So it's not just going to be this, it's the whole of the arm, and it extends out slightly. And then you sit back, and that draws your arm up. In a similar sort of way to we noticed rolling the ball earlier. Obviously, there's other factors that are quite different about this exercise. Hips dropping back. As your hands reach the bottom, a loose fist. So your fist should be hollow. And then coming back and grasping the tiger's ears. One more time. Changing over. Step out. Scooping the sea. Looking at the sky. And grasping the tiger's ears. One more time. Bring your feet back parallel. Part in the wild horse's mane, slightly more complex, and the thing to do is to follow it stage by stage. So bring your weight back, the majority of your weight into your right hip. The weight will be in other places as well. Bring your right hand up to hold the top of the ball, left hand underneath. You're going to move across into your left leg. It's like you're pushing your shoulder in and you turn. And you just feed the left hand out, press down with the right hand. Come back to hold the ball and then move across. So hands are almost traveling the opposite way, not quite, like you're stretching out an elastic band. You try and feel that opening diagonally across your chest and your belly, especially in your chest, and then feel the contraction. So opening and closing, think of this. Opening in chest on the left-hand side of your body and closing. Move across. Same thing on the other side. Part in the wild horse's mane. So following that pattern of opening and closing, there are several things that we could do to achieve that. So again, thinking of what's happening in the chest, this time, rather than bringing your weight back, leave your weight forwards in your right foot. And as your chest closes, let that draw your left hand in towards your right elbow. Fingers are pointing downwards. And then sit back and sort of pull up a little bit, as though you're pulling your fingers out of soft mud. And then turn your hands in as though you're holding a ball between them and push back into your right foot. Now, come back into your left hip, drop your left hand down, move into your right foot, hip, in the way that you would have apart the wild horse's mane. And forwards, rest there for a moment with your weight, but let the closing of your chest bring your right hand around. Pull back just a little way and then push forwards. This is white Apocus troop. Back more fully into your right hip and across and then out. One. Leaving the weight forwards for a moment. Two. Three. Move your weight back towards your left hip. Turn your hand palm in. And three. Go forwards. Four. Come back. Drop the left hand down, hold the bottom of the ball, and five into your right hip. Again, one and two. Three, four, five, and six. White Apocus troop. One last time. And then just rest for a moment. Coming back to this position, using your awareness of your physical stance to now just draw your attention in to your body. You may find that your thoughts are kind of buzzing a little. Was it left hand or right hand? Just let that go. Bring your attention back to your posture, the feeling of your weight sinking down, that spacious quality within your body, the breathing, whatever sort of anchors your attention. Then rubbing your hands together again, tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Um, the other side. Really round towards your back if you can get that far comfortably. Then your legs. Okay, and then just pushing your heels up, doing sort of a pumping type action in your legs. And around. Back the other way. And then standing carefully. So the structure has changed as we come to the standing, but still, the really key qualities, the spaciousness within the body, the feeling of our weight sinking down, our breathing perhaps, whatever it is, that these qualities that we begin to appreciate when our body is somehow in line, in harmony with the environment that we're in. We've moved from seated to standing, but the core feelings are going to be the same. So what we want to do is to move the body towards a structure that enhances those qualities, cultivates those qualities. So start here. You want your feet hip width apart. Imagine trying to do what we've just been doing in the chair on one of these narrow little benches you get in bus stops these days. You'd be sliding off all the time. You wouldn't be able to do it. Your feet are too close together. It's the same kind of thing. I mean, you can do this. You can do this and so on and so forth. But what we're trying to do, in a sense, is to make it easy for ourselves to feel those qualities when we're upright. Once we've got those, we can play around with stances. The next thing is to be in line with the pull of gravity. Again, if the chair was broken and one leg was sort of like wobbly and so on and so forth, you kept tilting over, you'd be sliding off the chair again. We don't want to be like this or like this. We want to be here. And there are several ways of approaching this, but one thing you can do, I'm going to come a bit closer, is try and get to a feeling where when your arms drop straight down, you see my middle or my ring or my little finger will point straight down at my ankle. If I tilt forwards, and you see that's too far. My little finger is now there. In fact, I've got a trouser seam there, which is handy. If I lean back, it's going to be like that. But remember that a lot of us do habitually do that. It's very, very common. So when we go from this to this, it may well be that your brain is going to tell you that you've gone from this to this. You may feel hunched over. Again, I remember doing a private class with somebody once, and they couldn't believe that this was upright. They kept saying, but I'm leaning forwards. And in the end, what I had to do was take a photograph of them and show them the difference. This is somebody quite aware of their posture. So this is a very subtle thing. Feeling that the front of your body is just hanging down slightly. And then generating the movement from the legs. This is more obvious, I think, standing than it is in the chair. Letting your weight, your hips drop back, and then pushing up, not locking your knees back when you come to the upright position. And it's very much your hips going back. It's not this, your knees going forwards. Apart from anything else, you could strain your knees. So bear that in mind. You know, there's a limit to how far you can do this. Strong in the muscles of the legs, but soft in the joints. Your body expanding and contracting with that same rhythm that we felt in the chair. Bringing your hands around, cradling the ball, pushing up and sinking down. From here, turn your hands out, push up and drop down. And then change in. Back to rooting down. Just trying to get a sense of gently flowing from one move to another. Just aware of what's happening within your body. Okay. Now changing the stance. Turn one foot out. The angle is about between 30 and 45 degrees. Step straight forwards with the other foot. So I've kept the width of my step, and it's not too long. And just beginning to transfer your weight from front to back. And again, we can view this in different ways. We can think of there being a definite sort of push from the foot. We can be aware of a sense of sinking here, loading the legs, so that rather than having to think, okay, I'm going to push from the foot now, there just comes a natural point where the leg starts to expand. In either of those cases, make sure that your intent is for your weight to go forwards or backwards. So the push would tend to move you up, but we direct it through the center of the body. And we could even think that actually that center of the body I talked about, you know, like a ball, the ball's quite big and just rolls forwards and rolls back, and rolls forwards, and rolls back. So again, you know, they all have a certain amount of validity to them. The final view of this I think, is in some ways the one that encapsulates all of them, which is that the ball is here in that area between hips and waist, the lower part of the abdomen, so that as you go back, that's where we feel that the compression. We feel it in the leg because our weight is there. But when the ball expands, what it would do is it will push up, and again we want to take that forwards, but it will also push down. So we'll feel that movement through the legs as well. And all of those will involve a certain amount of pressure downwards through the foot. So associated with all of these, there's that sense of really connecting quite strongly with the ground beneath your feet. You raise your toes and your heel. So you get more of your weight going into your leg. And then what we want to do, bring one foot in. And when you replace it in the same position. So here, for instance, my foot's going to go back and out. Here, my foot's going to go forwards and out. Notice my front foot is slightly turned out. And in fact, what that will be soon is a circular movement, or quarter of a circle, like you're drawing the arc on the ground. And this ensures that you keep the width of your step. And from the side, you see my leg contract, and this is exaggerated. You don't have to stand on one leg like this. And then it expands out. And then the leg contracts and expands out. So there's a combination of that circular movement and the expansion and contraction of your leg. And then on the other side, so we get used to placing the foot where we want it to be placed. Same thing on the other side. Once again, drawing in whatever ideas, whatever images are working for you. They won't all work for you at once, and you may have latched on to one particular thing, and that's great, and you can work with that, but it may change. It may be that next week or at some other point in the future, something else will mean something. Doesn't mean the first way was wrong. Just that it's like we're now walking around the tree. So what we thought was something with a big crack in it now is more rounded, and then so on and so forth. And raising your toes and your heel. When you step in, it's quite a short step comparatively speaking, and the foot goes back and out. The ball of the foot goes down if it's the rear foot. You put the foot down and then move the weight. I sometimes describe it as though you're walking on thin ice, so that you can feel the contact with the ground before you commit your weight. And this sensitizes your leg and your foot and your mind, of course, to the placement of your foot. And this time going forward. So this is a useful exercise. Not so much because this is how we would expect to walk normally, but because by doing this, by paying attention in this way, we are training ourselves to recognize more of what's going on in our body, and in particular in the process of stepping. And then going back. Good. And then just give your legs a shake. And by that time, so we won't do the arm movements with those. Go back to your chairs, and something that you can use to practice that placement of the foot. This is a very straightforward thing to do. I can find something. I'm going to find a book. So if I get this book, for instance, and I just place it there. So what I want to do is I take a stance here, and you see my toes are against the book. I need to do there. Make sure the stance is comfortable, and then I bring my foot in, and I go out, and I'm aiming for the same position. And I might want to move my weight or not, as the case may be. And this is quite a useful exercise to do. You can do it seated or standing. So there, I'm going to do this. I think that's about right. You need to shuffle around, but I can go from here to here. Didn't quite get it that time. Let's go forward a little bit, I think. And you could even in the chair practice the circular movement if you wanted to. So although obviously, I mean, it's easier in a sense in the chair because the weight of your body is being supported by the chair. And I think that's quite useful because now you can really focus on the sensations in your legs and so on. And this definitely has an effect on us. We become more aware of what our feet are doing, and it's very easy to lose touch with that awareness. So there's some exercise to practice there, and you can see because I've been talking a lot more about structure and some of the aspects of the mechanics of the movement. Of course, it's taken up more of the class, so it does take time to do this, and it's not necessarily something that you want to occupy the whole of the time, but it is an important element in the practice. So try those ideas out. Now, just coming back to seated, let your arms drop down. Embrace tiger, return to the mountain. So once again, just your thoughts occupied with your posture and your movement, the sensations within your body. It's a particular emphasis on that quietening, settling quality. One more time. And rest. Lovely. Thank you, everybody. Once again. So, say a little bit more technical this week. Hope it's useful to you.